Sorry, I've been trying to record this video for a while and it just it keeps on going wrong. Today my video is going to be about talking about how certain tragedies or certain deaths within the tragedies are more socially acceptable or recognized because of who committed them and or who died in them. So this is talking about things like, we all know about Hitler, he's evil, and I'm not saying he's not, like, he totally fucking is, but you have other people in history who did things just as bad, if not worse than Hitler, who nobody even fucking knows exists. Or we know he exists, or that they exist, and they're celebrated as heroes. Like fucking Columbus, for example. Fucking asshole. But like, he's not even like one of the ones that are more comparable to Hitler. But anyways, so unfortunately my phone will only record a little bit before it cuts off, and so I have to keep this short so I won't go into every single person. But even when talking about Hitler, in the Holocaust, everyone knows about the 6 million Jewish people who died in the Holocaust, but a lot of people don't know that it was actually 11 million people who died in the Holocaust total. The worst is when you see things when people like are talking about it and they'll say it wasn't 11 million Jews or 11 million Jewish people, or whatever else. It wasn't 6 million Jews or Jewish people. It was 11. I'm mixing up my numbers. Anyways, it was 6 million people. Like, stop trying to label them and stuff. And it's like, no, the reason why people say 6 million Jewish people is because that's how many of the people who died in the Holocaust were Jewish. If you're gonna just say how many, just want to say call them people and human beings or whatever, then you better say the whole fucking number, because you're completely ignoring 5 million people who died who met the same gruesome fate. Like, but I guess since they are people that, because the thing is that the reason why we're allowed to hate Hitler, and I'm not saying like in a totalitarian way, like you're only allowed to hate certain people or whatever else, like the government thought crimes, crap like that. I'm saying that the way history is written and the way we're taught it, it's a narrative. It's not a list of facts, it's a narrative. And certain facts are omitted or glossed over, and other ones are embellished or exaggerated. Because, there's the famous quote, history is written by the victors, or my personal favorite by Napoleon Bonaparte is, history is a set of lies agreed upon. And while this isn't always 100% true, especially in a more recent age when we have, more ways of having primary evidence instead of just 100% secondary evidence. So primary evidence meaning things to show what actually happened, so like video and photographs and things like this, versus secondary evidence, which is, secondhand accounts and things like this, so textbooks and people talking about it. But anyways, first-hand accounts, primary evidence, also like someone who's there talking about it. But yeah, it's a little muddled because people are going to embellish shit, right? Anyways, so even with Hitler, we're allowed to hate him because he was the enemy. He was the enemy of pretty much everyone else, and he did terrible things. And yeah, like, I'm not saying we're not supposed to hate Hitler, like, don't get me wrong, he's awful. But he was a bad person and everything else. And the thing is, afterwards, like, everything that we did for the Jewish people and everything, and it was kind of like, okay, we gotta stop all this, all these freaking millennia of doing terrible things to Jewish people, because every other European country was doing terrible things to Jewish people, not to that level, but still they were not being nice to Jewish people leading up to that. And the thing is, though, that the rest of the people who died and were sent to concentration camps and things like this were gay people, were black people, were disabled people, were Romani, etc., etc. And those people were still hated and discriminated against in most of the cultures that were the countries that were liberating the camps. In fact, it was to the point that the gay men that were like, when they were liberating the camps, the gay men were not liberated like everyone else, because being gay was still illegal. So they were taken from the camps to jails. So they weren't let out until like until actually only a few decades ago, like the 80s or something. So it's kind of like that's why they don't get acknowledged, because when the shit was all being written down, there was only one of the victims that could be sympathized with, and it was the Jewish people, because they were the ones that, you know, like if you look at the Old Testament, that's their Torah, like that's their holy book, and so the Christians can be like, oh, well, they're like us, you know. Also, Einstein, you know, the one that everyone loved so much, he was Jewish, right? So, you know, like they were the ones that people were allowed to sympathize with, but everyone else was still hated, so you couldn't sympathize with them, right? So there was still like that issue there. And then other just atrocities, it was like your own people were responsible for them. So like you're gonna hate on the founders of your country, you're gonna hate on like Columbus, everyone loves Columbus, he did horrible fucking things. You're gonna hate on your own people, and no, you're not gonna do that. And so to the point that a lot of history that's why I love the quote, history is a set of lies agreed upon, because things are written in a narrative to best fit how the people in power at the time feel. And you can actually, it's really interesting to look at history books and things like this that are written at different points in history and see how their reporting of events reflects the views of the time. And even to the point where like you would have people who would like destroy historical or damage historical evidence because it didn't fit with their narrative. Like a lot of ancient Egyptian artifacts have been damaged because it was too clear that ancient Egyptians were black, and you can't have black people having all these technological advancements. Black people are supposed to be whatever the fuck they were believing back then, which is just like stupid and a bunch of basically that black people were like uneducated and not capable of this crap, and they were a lower crap and all these other awful things. So that's why so many Egyptian stuff has the noses chipped off, because that was the clearest way of telling that the people were Egyptian. I'm not saying specifically the Sphinx, but like a lot of other statues and stuff like this had the noses chipped off, and a lot of like there was just like so much of that stuff, and there's a bunch of stuff that is being discovered now that was evidence to historical figures being queer in some way, whether it be like gay or bisexual at least, or even just trans. Like, because it's like, oh, we can't have these cultures that we're celebrating find out that they were totally cool with queer people. What? No, that's not okay. Or finding out that these historical figures were gay in some way. What? No, that's not cool. We're gonna freaking hide that. And even to the point where like if you have historical figures who were like super gay and like not hiding it, that historians to this day are still dismissing blatant evidence to the fact, like Alexander the Great or Shakespeare or Michelangelo or a lot of Renaissance people, because apparently there's a lot of homosexuality going on in the Renaissance. Although, to be fair, the Renaissance does mean rebirth, and it was rebirth of the classics being Greco-Roman, and there was a lot of gay stuff going on in the ancient Greece and Rome. So, yeah, anyways. But, yeah. I originally was just talking about my frustration because I saw some stuff and people were just not realizing a thing about the Holocaust being 11 million, and I just started talking about gay people in history. It's cool how topics diverged like that. Anyway, thanks for watching.